Hey guys, you missed me yet? J.C.L. here for the Writer's Lens. It's been a while, it's been some time since I've been back here on the show, and I must say, it's been a long haul. But it's the summer. The summer is slowly waning. It's starting to wind down. It is August now, and I've been pretty much off the hook here for a few months. But it's been a good couple of months, and I got some updates for you, or rather, more of a recap in some ways, and some things that we're looking forward here towards the future. So stay tuned on this episode of The Writer's Lens. Again, I'm your host, J.C.L. That old familiar theme song. It always kind of gets my blood flowing. So, hey, how's it going? How's it going there, team? How's it going there, guys? How's it going there, gang? I don't even know what the proper way to introduce myself after such a long hiatus. What should I say, and where should I even begin? First of all, thanks for checking out The Writer's Lens. If you're new to the show, you can go back and binge on all the episodes. I promise you there's a lot of really good stuff in there, and there's probably some very awkward stuff in there because the show has been around now for almost, I think, 4 years now. I think we're going on 4 years. Pretty cool. Pretty cool to say the least. And even when I take long month hiatuses like I did recently, people are still listening. They're still downloading the show. They're still checking it out. That is exciting. So thanks for tuning in if you're a first-time listener. If you're not a first-time listener and you have been just so bogged down, you've been wondering all summer, where is J.C.L.? Where did he go? What happened to him? Did he, run off a cliff or something? No, I'm actually very much alive. I'm well, and I'm not recording this in the past, so you can hear it in the future or something weird like that. I'm coming at you from my microphone set here in August of 2022, and I'm doing pretty well overall. So as I said, I wanted to give a bit of a recap or even a preview of the time ahead, the time behind us, and really the reason why I've been on sabbatical, if you will, the reason why I haven't been doing episodes. So those are some of the things I want to cover. So first and foremost, why the big absence this past summer? Well, there's a couple reasons for that, but the biggest one was really just time. My wife started a new job. I'll dispense with all the details, but she's not working at evenings as much, so I'm trying to spend a little more time with her. I think it's a very important thing. For those of you who are married and are listening to the show, marriage, as wonderful an institution as it is, it's a lot of work, and my wife and I had sort of reinvigorated our love of playing a video game together in the evenings, which was Tetris, of all things, for the Nintendo Switch. And I know that sounds totally nerdy or perhaps weird, but I look forward to that in the evenings with my wife. We started to, and then we started looking at each other going, why are we doing this? And then we were like, oh, it's because we have time to hang out together and just chat and play this game with one another while the kids are sleeping. So that's one of the reasons, as simplistic as it sounds, that's one of the reasons why I haven't been doing episodes, is I just, haven't pulled myself away from my wife in the evenings to spend time with her. And, summer's a busy time in general. My kids are getting older. They're in sports. I'm coaching baseball and doing other things. So time is limited. And as I've often said on this show for the past few years, I don't want to be one of those people that sacrifices his family at the altar of his creative pursuits. So again, and to preface that with the clause of, yeah, you can still pursue your creative goals. I'm not saying to not do that and to throw them all to the wayside and, just try to be a husband and a father and all those things. Those are very important. But know where your priorities are. I guess know where your priorities are and see where they're needed instead of just trying to bulldoze your way through everything. I don't always do that perfect, but I think this was a good time, good season, if you will, for me to kind of pull back a little bit and spend some time in the evening with my family. So that's the primary thing that has kept me from recording. And as far as a recap of the past few months for me, one of the big things that I've been learning about myself is that the structure that I need as a storyteller is something that I often fight with. Quite often. I'm a part of a couple different creative collaborations and fellow writers and creatives, and I enjoy getting on Zoom calls with them or chatting with them in a text message, just saying, hey, this, that, or the other. What are you thinking about? Have you, how are you disciplining yourself? How are you developing better habits? And it is so easy to make a bad habit. It's so hard to create a good one. And once you create a good habit, it's very hard to pull away from it because of the rewards that you get from making that good habit. I was making a good habit out of recording in the evenings when my kids were in bed. And then, of course, as summer comes and they're up later, it's very hard to get them to bed. And, that another reason why it's a lot harder to do what I do nowadays. But just learning the disciplines again is a hard thing to do. And not beating yourself up when you feel as though like you're not doing what you feel like you should be doing, when you feel a bit torn in some way. One thing I struggled with when in the early goings of this podcast was not having my mind present. If I could come home from work and immediately I started thinking about the episode I was going to do that evening, I could miss some things. I could miss what my kids were doing. I could miss out on just connecting with some friends, maybe just catching up on some world events, or maybe, not remembering to do certain things around the house I needed to do and neglecting them instead. These are some traps that I could fall into and get distracted pretty easily. And getting older, it's harder and harder to break some of those things. As I said, it's harder and harder to build good disciplines as you get older. I mean, I'm getting closer to 40 now than I am to 35, and it's a bit of a weird feeling, to be completely honest. It's a strange feeling, but it's a good one in the same sense as I'm perusing through this thing called life. So I'm learning, and I'm still unlearning things that I learned so I can learn them again, I guess is the best way of putting it. But just trying to develop good disciplines, trying to develop good habits again is a big part of what I am doing currently. That being said, some of the things to recap on over the past couple months that pertain to this podcast and pertain to creative pursuits are vast and many. Number one, I've been trying to read more. I've been trying to, check in with, popular culture a little bit more as it pertains to film and video media and things like that. Trying to cut down a lot of my media consumption in terms of just news. I'm one of those people that if I'm sitting around reading too many articles, I can get a little bit flustered or frustrated by the way that news is presented in general. And that's a whole other story, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But that being said, the things I've been reading and the things that I've been ingesting over the past few months have been very life-giving for me. I read a couple of books. I've been reading a new book recently. I just had finished a book called When Christmas Comes by Andrew Klavan, and it was very good and really kind of sparked again the creative juices in me to start writing some stories once more and try to finish that never-ending novel of the sequel to The Road to Mars that I keep getting so much flack for from friends of mine because they're like, dude, where is this? You're turning into like James Cameron and his sequel to Avatar. When is it finally going to drop? And I always say, well, when it drops, it'll drop and you'll be the first to know. So there's that to contend with. And just the goal setting, of course, the reality that as I'm ingesting things and I'm ingesting the other creative works from people and catching up on shows and film and stuff like that, it gives you new ideas and it sets you on new horizons, new goals that you might have for things that you want to do. And I've always been very reactionary in my creative pursuits. I think I see something and then I realize there's a reaction or perhaps there's a counter action to this that needs to happen. And I can get lost in that somewhat. And I know that sounds like I sound like some sort of addict perhaps, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is that, this gave me a really great idea and I should probably talk about that or I should write about it. And just getting back into the groove of that has been very, very difficult. But also trying to be very proactive in the same sense can be part of that journey and what is something I'm trying to do and accomplish. So going forward, as I've kind of muddled my way through this recap episode and now we're kind of casting off into the future, one of the things I really, really want to hone in on as 2022 starts to come to a close towards it. Obviously, we're in August. We're not quite there yet. We got quite a few months left, thankfully. One thing I want to hone in on is just the inspiration that is necessary to stay in the game. my full-time gig is not this, and one day, if God willing, it will be. It's a hard thing to do, to be a creative. It's a hard thing to be a writer. It's a hard thing in general to be someone that sits down and says, I have something to say, and I have something I have to put together, and then put those thoughts together, and then give them to people without the fear of being completely lambasted and being called a fool, and then feeling like you could never write something ever again. It's hard to do that. Okay, it's very hard to do that, and it is a bit of a journey. And I think for most people that start creative pursuits, an overnight success story is what we envision, but it's never really what we actually want. When I was probably about 20, 21 years old, I started writing a short story, and I finished it. It was about 30 pages long, and I was very proud of myself when I wrote it, and I was done with it. And I actually don't know where it is now, but having written it back in that time of my life, when I look back, it was a hard thing to do because I had a lot of distractions. I was still single. I was in college. I had, a business major pursuit. So writing was something I just did, kind of in those wee hours of the day that were allotted to me, where I could decide to do whatever I wanted with them. And it's in these time periods when the other priorities have been taken care of, like in my case, being with family, spending time with my wife, taking the kids to practice, being a coach, being a mentor, teaching on a Sunday school class or something like that. When those other priorities are no longer there, or the day is ending and those things are not as pertinent to call my attention, it's in those small slivers of space where the habits and the disciplines and the goal setting and then the actual application of those things must be able to take place. And so, there are times in my life I've been very good at that. There's been times in my life I've been terrible at it. And this past summer, I think, was a time where I consciously said, I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to try and carve out those spaces. I spent an evening with my kids on one of the nights when my wife has been working. I spent an evening playing baseball in the family room. So if she ever listens to this episode, she's going to get a little bit of an insider track into what me and the kids will do when she's not here. But it's good, and it's fun, and it's exciting, and it's very rewarding to be able to do that and to recognize that that is a priority, and it's a priority for them. It's a priority for me to be a part of that. And again, I'm not speaking against non-dads or those that don't have kids and things like that, or chose not to. Of course, I hate even disclaimering it that way. But recognizing where your priorities are in your life right now and what those slivers of time are. Are they larger right now? Are they smaller right now? Where are those chunks of your day where you actually can use to build up those disciplines, build up those good habits, and start to get your mind right, and ultimately be looking for that inspiration that's going to allow you to bring that thing over the finish line. So that's kind of like where I'm at right now, getting back to those time slots where I'm looking to fill them up with the right kind of thing or action that I need to take part in and just grow in. So that's really where I'm at again, just kind of ramping myself back up. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about just kind of getting back on that track again. So I'm excited to share that with you. For those that, again, if you're a first-time listener and you're like, oh, how did this come about? Who is this guy? That's where I'm at right now in my creative journey. I got a couple of reviews I'd like to do eventually. Like I said, I read a couple books this summer. When Christmas Comes was one of them, which was very good. I have checked into a couple of different shows, and my wife and I are watching The Terminalist right now, starring Chris Pratt, and it is marvelous. It is so good. I recommend it to anybody that's looking for some good, unapologetically good action and suspense, without any of the sort of strange woke politics that keep getting infused in all of our shows now. This one is a diamond in the rough as far as I'm concerned. So it's been really good so far. Hopefully I'm not disappointed by the end of it. And beyond that, just sort of in hindsight and what I've been reading and ingesting, really just kind of taking some time to focus in on the priority of just, teaching my kids. Okay, that's kind of what I'm ingesting now. Is what does it mean to be a good dad? What does it mean to be, a good father? And for those that don't know my story, my own father, both my parents are still together. They've been together for over 40 years, and I'm very fortunate for that. But my dad, for many, many years of his life, and even now, being someone that has Parkinson's disease, had a hard time just being dad, because when you have Parkinson's, for those that know anything about it, it's a very debilitating disease and takes you out of things physically. And it can be very hard to make yourself present with people when that is going on. So it's a hard thing. He's a trooper. My mom's perhaps in some ways an even bigger trooper just for being beside him all these years. And I'm very blessed to have both of them as parents. But just recognizing now that I am a dad, some of the things that I want to be active in the same way my dad was, and in some of the ways that he was not able to, I can continue to do that going forward. So that probably sounds pretty heavy. It's maybe not what you were expecting out of an episode of The Writer's Lens here after months of being away, but these are just some of the thoughts. These are some of the ruminations of this, this crazy creative over here that you've been following or just picked up recently. And I promise, and I don't like making promises on the show because it kind of sounds like a dumb thing to do, but I promise to bring a little more heat as well. I think that one of the things that makes for a good experience with podcasts is that it's not so much, I don't like the word raw, but I like the authenticity or just sort of the honesty behind perhaps someone's thoughts on something, their opinions. Opinions, of course, are only as good as you can give them. But just in general, trying to be more of a voice for what I see as being good when it comes to the stories that we see out there in not just the mainstream media, but just anywhere in general. The stories that we're telling and the stories that we see being told to us and how we're interpreting those. I want to keep the heat up on that because it's such a powerful thing in our culture. Because culture is upstream from a lot of other things, especially our political situation, societal situation. Culture is upstream from all of that. So that's the space that I'm inhabiting, and I try to take note of that as much as possible. So that's what we got going on here at The Writer's Lens. Reviews, recaps coming up soon, and maybe a couple other strange episodes in between. But welcome back. Glad to be part of the journey again. I hope you guys are too. Lots to talk about this coming season here on The Writer's Lens. So until next time, guys, I'm J.C.L. Felto, and this is The Writer's Lens.